I want to thank you guys and InterNACHI for having us tonight. We're going to cover report writing. It's a short version because it's only an hour. Usually when we teach this class at the school, it's a 6-hour class. We get a lot more in depth, but we are going to be doing this same webinar with a little more detail down at the convention in Orlando. So if anybody that's on is going to be down at the convention, please mention that you were on this webinar, and you'll see it'll be a little different. We're going to go into a lot more detail at the webinar because we'll have a full 2 hours. So with that said, we'll get started. We are going to talk about effective report writing tonight and how we go about it. I prepared a bunch of slides that hopefully will be helpful for you guys as we go along. So this is the first one. The next slide is just basically about us. AJ said do a little introduction. We are a family-owned and operated business. Those are my two sons as well as myself. I have a background in electrical and mechanical engineering. Obviously, you guys can read it. I'm an InterNACHI certified master inspector as well as a CPI. We're licensed termite inspectors in the state of New York as well. And I do teach the course to new inspectors in New York coming on board to get their license. Here in New York, we have to do 100 classroom hours as well as 40 field hours. I know each state is different. Some states don't even require a license, but here in New York, we do. So that's just a little background on us. And obviously, we do continuing ed as well. It's required in New York State for active inspectors. And I do a lot of mentoring with new inspectors as well as folks that have questions, and I always make myself available. Same with you guys. As my information comes up, feel free to reach out to me anytime I could be of help in any way in the industry. I enjoy helping people out. So basically, we're going to start off tonight with the introduction standards of practice. So basically what you want to do is follow pretty much, if you're familiar with the InterNACHI standards of practice or your state standards of practice, you can follow one of them, but you need to follow a standards of practice. And that's just a quick definition of scope of work. A home inspection is a non-invasive visual inspection of accessible areas. We're going to get into more detail as to how to document if you don't have proper access to certain things. So we'll see as we go along, but that's a quick definition. Again, I highly recommend reading and following the SOPs. InterNACHI has a great standards of practice on the website, so I would definitely get familiar with that. Material defects, that's basically what we're looking for. It specifies an issue with a system or a component. Again, we're talking about a residential inspection, so that's basically dealing with the property that'll have an adverse impact on the value of the property as well as safety. So those are always things that we have to be concerned about. The definition of the home inspection, a home inspection report basically is saying it's going to be in a written format. It's going to specify the defects, the systems, the components defined by the standards of practice. As we just spoke about, you want to follow the standards of practice and document all your stuff on your report as you write it. So limitations, again, if you can't access something, if you can't get to something, document it. Definitely put a picture in there. I was going to pull up one of the reports, but for some reason I'm having difficulty pulling it up to show you what an actual report looks like. If you guys go to my website, there's a sample report on there with everything we're talking about. You'll see specifically what we're talking about, how we do it when we write our report. So it's important to document your limitations and exclusions and in your standards of, I put in the standards of practice, which again, this is all coming from the SOPs through InterNACHI. Standards of practice, you're going to inspect the roof, the exterior, the structure, the heating, et cetera, et cetera. So with that said, I wanted to talk about what your clients are going to expect from an inspection report. And it's very important that everything be relevant and you have clarity as to what you're documenting in your report. Also, when we're doing the inspection, we're talking to the clients and verbalizing. So you want there to be a parallel between what you're talking about and what you're putting in the report. That's what number 2 is: sound advice and no surprises. You don't want to say something and not include it in the report, and vice versa. Pictures, simple. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. Take that picture, put it in your report. You can, any software, if you, and one of the questions me and AJ were talking about was, I wanted to find out how many people are actually delivering a computer generated report versus, I know there's still some guys out there that are using the carbon copies, just check boxes, that type of thing. So it was one of the survey questions that we were going to ask. I don't know if we were able to get that up and running, but just out of curiosity, I was curious to see what everybody, how they deliver their reports, and how they, are they using software or the old fashioned way. Back in the day, we used to just use carbon copy and rip it off and give it to them. No pictures, nothing. Goes back prehistoric times. But what you want to do with your client is you want them to have the ability to make a decision in the shortest period of time. If you folks are out there doing inspections, you know the real it is, want that report ASAP. And I wanted to talk about, and that was one of the other polls I wanted to find out, who delivers their reports on site, or they deliver it that night, or 24 hours, 48 hours. Just curious as to what everybody does and how they deliver their reports to the clients on site, 24 hours, or that evening. Me personally, I like to go home, digest the inspection, go through the report, make my corrections, because as you know, when you're in the field, sometimes pictures come upside down, sideways. So you want it to be looking good when you deliver it. Us as inspectors, we always want to know what's the easiest way when you're on site to generate a report. So if you're using software, there's a lot of different softwares out there. You have mobile apps. Ben has done quite a few videos where he's actually doing inspection on his mobile app. You gather all the data, you take your pictures. Really helpful in generating the report like that. As a matter of fact, I think AJ is going to try to come up in the spring, and we're going to go out and do a couple of more videos, in actually writing reports and doing that kind of stuff on site. So templates, you could customize templates. Again, kind of going to go through this stuff quick because we only have an hour. We're going to go into a little more detail down at the convention. Or if anybody has questions regarding anything I'm talking about, you can reach out to me. In the mobile app, there's a note section. You could put notes in, just like as if you were handwriting it, that you can reiterate in your report if you're doing a computer generated report. Easy to navigate in the mobile app. Again, this is all generating your report on site through your mobile app.
Hey,
The
Rob.
other thing is, yes.
Hey, I got that quiz on. So I know about 24 of you guys have already participated. So if you're interested, the poll is live for you guys. And it looks like so far 100% is computer generated.
Awesome.
Mark
Awesome.
also just asked if do you offer downloadable templates for reference?
Do I?
I think so.
I'm
Do you?
sorry, AJ, I couldn't.
He asked if you offer downloadable templates for reference.
I can work on that. I can share some of my templates that we do, but it's also specific to the area you're in. So if you're down in the southeast and we're up here in the northeast, it's a little different, but we could definitely talk about, reach out to me. best way is you'll have my information. AJ will share it with you. I could definitely help you guys out with that. No worries at all. So basically, AJ, 100% computer generated.
100% so far is computer generated, 25 people.
Yep. We have a couple of folks when I teach the course and we're doing CE classes. There's a few guys out there that are still doing the triplicate carbon copy. I know that's way before your time, AJ. You're way too young to know about that. But these guys want to know why they're not busy. So it doesn't make sense. But they're old school. Not to say I'm not, but you got to grow with the times. So yes, whoever asks about the templates, reach out to me. I'll be more than glad to help you guys out. Also in the mobile app, there's reminders as to what your standards of practice of what you have to comment on. So as you're going in the mobile app, it'll give you a reminder for all the systems and the stuff that you have to document on the inspection. Search tool, you can set up a library on your mobile app that is preset for recommendations and observations that you do throughout the report. Yeah, systems and recommendations can be preset, pretty much what we just spoke about. It's very important when you're done with your report and it goes out. Obviously, it's going to go to your client, but what's going to happen is a lot of times the attorney gets it, friends, family, realtors. You want that report to really highlight your expertise out in the field. And that's the last thing that people really see is that report. So I'm very OCD with my report. I make sure it goes out, spell check, all of that stuff, because my feeling is if you misspell a word, even though it's an honest mistake, sometimes people will question your capability, which it's crazy, but it's happened. So pretty much it's like I always compare it to, you go out for a nice meal and the dessert is so, it leaves a little bad taste in your mouth about the meal. So our report is the dessert at the end of the meal, and we want it to be really the best. So why we write a report? We just talked about it. Document what you find on your inspections. And I picked these things out because these are things that up here in the Northeast, we deal with, buried oil tanks. So there's certain things that you don't want to miss: asbestos, termites, anything safety. Document that in the report, highlight it, picture, text over, etc. Really, really important. Also, you want to document your limitations. If you can't get to something, if something's sealed off like a crawl space, you want to document it, take a picture. That's going to become a limitation. Sometimes you can't get the electrical panel off. I know some areas you don't have to take the panel off, but that's another topic of conversation. To me, that's a safety issue. You take panel covers off, and there's a lot of things going on in there that could be concerning.
Hey, Rob.
Again, providing. Yes.
Hey, Rob. Mark is curious if you have any preferences for our report writing programs.
There's so many out there. What I tell people to do is to go and get a trial period. So all of these software report writing companies will give you a trial period. I highly recommend using it and seeing what fits best for you. Get the report writing software and inspect your own house. Use different report writing software and use your house as a sample, because you don't want to go out and use that on an inspection you're not familiar with it. You want to be 100% familiar with using the report writing software in the field. It does tend to slow you down a little bit because you're putting data in, but it helps you on the report writing end of your assignment when you deliver that report. So it's a trade-off. We personally go out with 2 inspectors when we're on site, so it gives us more of an ability to enter a lot more data in on the report and not slow us down. So me and Christopher, and we have 4 other folks that work with us. Again, we always go out in teams of 2, which is another topic of conversation. I think we could do a nice webinar on that, AJ. The benefits of the team inspection, and that would be another good poll to find out that how many people actually do a two-person inspection team or solo. So I think that's something that we can look into, and I'm always curious to find out how people go about their inspections and the procedure. Just basically we were talking about in the beginning, how to write a report. The format, you can do checklists, narrative, combination. When you're using the software, you pretty much combination. It's a checklist, it's narrative, typed, generated, or handwritten. Again, old school. And one of the questions was report writing software. That's different types, styles, and cost. So you would really try them and see how supportive the software writing company is, for you as you move along. So not only you look at cost, you look at style, how easy it is to use. You also want to make sure that you got good support, that if you get jammed up, even on an inspection when you're using it, that you could reach out to somebody and get those questions answered, relatively quick. Again, we kind of jumped the gun, single inspector versus multi inspectors out there. Again, I'd love feedback. I would love to hear on that. I don't know if AJ can throw a quick poll up on that, but we can weigh in on that and see. I'm very curious about that. When you're writing the report, it's very, very important to follow this process. You want to describe what it is. You want to determine what's wrong. You want to give the implication, why should the client, which is going to be the future homeowner, be concerned about it, and give them direction as to what they need to do. So I'm going to pick a real basic, simple example: downspouts off of the gutter system. We all know as inspectors that a good percentage of water in a basement or a crawl space comes from not only the negative sloping, the grading, but those downspouts. So a perfect example would be, describe what it is. Gutters, downspouts need to be extended away from the foundation. And what's wrong with it? It's not far enough away from the foundation. And we just talked about the implication. You have to put that in the report. Possible water in the basement or crawl space, and then direct, that's going to be the course of action, as simple as just extending the gutters away from the house. That's just a generic sample of what we're trying to talk about with the DDID approach to report writing. Legal considerations for report writing, pre-inspection agreement. Another, and again, AJ, I apologize. These were the polls that I wanted to do with everybody to find out. Pre-inspection agreements, very, very important. I'm always curious how people send it out. Some people bring a hard copy to the inspection. They have their client sign it there. Not a firm believer of that. Again, the soft writing, report writing software, most of them have that incorporated where you can get all the client's information, send it out to them, 24, 48 hours, a week ahead of time. Let them read it. They'll send it back to you electronically. It'll come back to you. In my report writing software, there's a green box that says pre-inspection accepted, or the yellow box, which means proceed with caution. They didn't sign it yet. There's no inspector that should show up on an inspection without the pre-inspection signed. It's very, very important, because your insurance, if you're carrying E&O, it might not cover you if you don't have this, pre-inspection signed prior to the inspection. I know there's a lot of people out there, some people still do it, to have the client sign it on site. If you have a multi-page document for your pre-inspection, it's pretty difficult for somebody to read that on site and understand it and digest it. So something to think about as you move forward. Talked about hard copy on site. What should the pre-inspection include? Should include the cost, limitation, scope of work, and the SOP that you're following. Again, InterNACHI's website has all of this stuff on there. Highly recommend, if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, to definitely go through it. And you can always ask questions as you move along if you're not sure.
We got
Legal consideration. I'm sorry.
a couple questions if you're open to answering them right now.
Sure.
All right. So if you're able to answer this one, in California, I heard that the homeowner needs to give permission to open the electrical panel. Is there any truth to that?
I'm not 100% sure about that. It's a good question. I've never come across it in New York State because that's part of my SOP. I open up the panel because, as far as I'm concerned, electric is one of the main safety issues in the house. Like I tell my clients, nobody gets hurt from a plumbing leak, but people die from electric. So it's my job to take that panel off. And if there's inspectors out there, we could talk about 50 different deficiencies when you take that panel cover off that's inside. So that's a good question. You'd have to check with your SOP. And basically the real estate that's involved in California. I would love to know that answer. That AJ, did you say the seller has to give permission to open up the panel?
The homeowner needs permission to open an electrical panel.
The homeowner
Yeah,
needs to
here
give
in-
permission.
Here in California, I heard that the homeowner needs to give permission to open an electrical panel. Is there any truth?
Okay, well, I believe that would be clearly stated in the SOPs, right, AJ?
I think so. Yeah, to go
Go to
back.
California. Great question, and I'd love to know the answer to that. I know in New York State we don't have to get permission, and anybody else that's in a different state, just throw in the chat box what the feedback is in the different states that you guys inspect at.
Yep, there's a couple comments here in BC. We can open distribution panels, only not disconnect cover, and can't open any covers on 400 amp. So there's a couple comments in the Q&A. Chris also has a question. What is your opinion on report writing past tense versus present?
That's a great question. We always do it in the present tense. You don't want to talk in the past because you're in the moment. So that's a good question. We always do it in the present tense. Yes. Any other questions, AJ?
I think you're good to rock and roll.
All right, excellent. So the non-disclosure, you as an inspector, and again, I'm talking New York State. I think this is pretty much standard throughout the industry. Your client, you'll see the next slide. Your client is the person that basically signs that pre-inspection agreement. So the inspector should have conversations with that client. Now, I've been on plenty of inspections where my client says to me personally, I don't want anybody to know anything that we're talking about. So if you don't mind, we'll talk one-on-one, or we'll just, talk about it at the end on our own. So people have their own strategies. Again, your main concern is your client, and the client is the person that signs that pre-inspection agreement. Written report should contain limitations with photos. We talked about that. I'll probably mention it a few times. Report any immediate threat or health or safety issues during an inspection. So if you're checking things out and you come across a gas leak or you smell anything that's an immediate danger, you have to report to anybody on site, especially the homeowner. So that's pretty common sense, and I make that clear to my clients, especially the person that doesn't want anybody to know our findings. But if there's imminent danger, you have to report it. There you go. I kind of got ahead of myself. So the person who engages your inspection, and I highlighted, is the person who signs the pre-inspection agreement. Now, a couple of interesting things that have happened throughout the years. We've done an inspection before where the husband or the wife would sign the pre-inspection agreement, and then years down the road they get divorced. And let's say, for example, the husband signed that pre-inspection agreement exclusively. Then the wife, for some reason, they're going through the divorce and they're trying to, that other person, even though it was the wife, would call up and ask for the report. But legally, I can't give out that report to anybody else except the person that signs the pre-inspection agreement. So if I'm doing an inspection, what I'll do is I will put the both husband and wife's name on the pre-inspection agreement and make sure that they're both on it. So if this situation ever came up again, she signed and he signed the pre-inspection, he, she, or whoever, and as long as they sign it, they can get a copy of the report. So again, the person who signs your pre-inspection is your client. And if anybody, disagrees with that, please weigh in on the Q&A, because I'm curious to find other people's thoughts process. I've, spoke to attorneys about this, and obviously the pre-inspection agreement is clear on that. Going
Hey,
back,
Rob,
obviously we talked about
we
writing.
have we have another question, a couple questions now. First, Christopher asks, do you have any advice on what to do when the EMD, earnest money deposit, is not given to the title company from the realtor when accepting payment at closing? I have not been paid twice now because of this. Thanks in advance.
That's an interesting question. I don't know the specifics. Now, AJ, what state is that he's talking about? Can he weigh in on that? I'm curious.
Any or Nebraska.
Okay. I'm not sure, but I know there's a lot of inspectors that require payment before they do the inspection. Again, another great Q&A question, AJ. What does everybody out there do? Do you get paid before the inspection? Do you get paid after? Me personally, I don't get paid until after the inspection. And when I'm on the phone with my clients prior to the inspection, I have conversations with them. I always call up and talk to them, before the inspection to kind of, get a feel for where their head's at, on the house, if they're first time home buyers or veterans. But I just tell my clients straight out, we accept payment, at the end, the day of, at the end of the inspection, and I tell them the methods of payment. And I guess, we've been, I guess, lucky. We've never gotten stiffed for a payment. So that's something, if you're not comfortable with, you can ask for payment prior to. It's a preference as to how you go about, running your business. So with me, at the end of the day, people are happy. They're actually happy to pay us. And it's so funny. We did an inspection today, and the lady actually tipped Christopher on top of, after she paid us, she actually gave him a tip, which was very generous and nice. So we normally, I can honestly say, we never have that problem. So I don't know if it's just dumb luck or what, but yeah, you can request payment prior to. Going back, layout of the
Yeah, we
report,
have
you
a couple
basically
more
put
questions. Um,
okay.
you start going off. Mark asks, what if the client has a third party attend the inspection? Can you discuss findings?
They, if I would have the conversation with that individual. In other words, there's a lot of times we'll do an inspection, the buyer will sign the pre-inspection, and he'll tell me that his dad's going to be, or his uncle, or whoever's going to be on the inspection. They're not going to be there, but you communicate that with a text or an email. I would document it to make sure that you got all the bases covered. And we do the same thing when we're on an inspection. If for some reason the seller of the house doesn't want us to do something that is going against our SOP. For example, I don't want you to take the electrical panel cover off. Okay, if the seller's telling you not to do it, then you can't do it. But I have them document it. I'll have the real estate agent or that person text and will document it that they didn't want us to take it off for whatever reason. We normally don't come across those situations, but anytime that you have that conflict, always get some kind of documentation. But yes, if my client signed the pre-inspection and someone else was going to have, and they gave permission to do that, same thing with the report. They signed the pre-inspection. A lot of times they'll say, oh, can you send my attorney the report? I'll make sure, just shoot me an email saying you give me permission to send it out. Realtor, uncle, whoever it is, family member, I always just get it documented saying, yeah, Rob, can you please send the report to so and so? So that's just again, make sure you get everything documented. Then as far as the content of the report, basically these are the areas that you're going to be inspecting and commenting on. So again, refer back to the SOPs. It breaks it down. Really, if you read it, it'll tell you what you should do, what you don't have to do. So be very, very familiar with that. And then like number 10, it gets broken down, interior, it can go into rooms, kitchens, bathrooms. So that's just the general connotation on the systems that you're going to inspect and comment on in your report writing. Layout, the 10 components of the body of the report. We talked a little bit earlier about that. Scope, description, condition evaluation of it, cause and condition, implication. I'll go back to the downspouts not being extended away from the house, because that's a good, easy visual to understand. You're going to wind up having water, getting into the crawl space or in the foundation over time. Recommended action limitation. 8, 9, and 10, if you notice, it's highlighted a little differently. We're not required to do it, but I do know inspectors that do include these in their reports. Again, it's preference. If you want to put life expectancy, I put in priorities because what might be a priority to you and I as inspectors might not be a priority to the homeowner. So again, those are things that are subjective to whether you're going to include them in the report or not. Pretty straightforward. Layout and content, again, it goes back to the DDID. I just put it in a different format. For every defect, you should have what the item is, what the problem is, what the implication. Location is very important on your report, because a lot of times you're taking the picture and you might not have a good reference as to the location of the house. So you want to make sure that you state the location. Now, another topic of conversation, I know people put in north, south, east, west. A lot of times people aren't orientated to that. So refer front, back, left, right. That's the way I do it. I don't want my client to be walking around with a compass. Where's the north, south, east, west part of the house? So that's, again, all personal preference, how you want to reference it. But location is important. Recommended action, usually if it's like the downspouts, that's an easy thing. You do it yourself, or the client can do it themselves by, go to Home Depot and just extend the gutters away. When I say recommended action, if it's above and beyond a simple thing like that for a homeowner to do, if we're talking about electric, then the recommended action, if it's something to do with the panel or something serious that you really can't do yourself, obviously you recommend either further evaluation or state the repair that if the breakers are rusted or the panel inside is rusted, that it's rusted, it's got to be changed. And whenever I do a recommended action, I always suggest to my clients to use a licensed and insured electrician, plumber, roofer, anything like that. It always states in the report, licensed and insured. You don't just want to do, a handyman doing the electrical work for you. Not good. So always recommend to your clients, the professionals, that they be licensed and insured. And in a time frame, of course, if it's an electrical concern that's more of an immediate type of thing that needs to be done. Downspouts, I like to use the terminology as soon as practical on certain things that aren't required to be taken care of right away, like something of electric or an active plumbing leak. That's an immediate repair. State specific lift, state what your limitations are when you're on site. For example, if you I'm not gonna use the roof as an example because you don't have to walk the roof. Some people do, but if you can't get into a crawl space, just document it that you can't get in there, or certain things if you can't get to that is part of your SOP. Definitely document it with a picture and an explanation in your report. Organization of the report. Again, great question. How many people include summary sections to their report? There's so many different angles on that. Some people I hate putting a summary in there because then my client only reads the summary, doesn't read the whole thing. Do you put the summary in the beginning? Do you put the summary at the end? It's all preference, and it's topics of conversation that you can, have with people and pick their brains and find out why they do it, and then you learn from other people. Like, I put my summary section in, I put it in the beginning. I do not include pictures because it seems redundant, but I state it in there. But though that summary section will show up in the body of the report with pictures and text overs. I like to put the most expensive and safety issues first. That goes into my summary section. When we write reports, there's 3 areas of concentration that we have to comment on: recommendations, and we talk, totally about limitations, and general info. You have to describe, what kind of roof you have, electrical, you got to tell them how many amps. That's your general information. Me personally, in my report, I like to put the recommendation first in the system because that's the most important thing. I don't want them to have to read through the general information to know that they got a 200 amp panel. That's kind of understood. I want them to see the safety issues or the recommendations first. So in my report, I start out in the system. If we're talking about the roof or the plumbing or the structure, my recommendation goes first. And again, this is preference. You could do it any way you want. Second would be the limitation. If I have an issue that I can't get to, I think that's important. And general information is just what it is. You're describing that system as to what it is. Blue hyperlinks, again, soft writing, report soft writing has blue hyperlinks. If you guys go to my website and you click on the report itself, you'll see blue hyperlinks. It gives your client more information in a very easy to read, but it's not in the body of the report where it's too much information in the report. But they could click on that hyperlink and understand more of that system recommendation or anything that we mentioned in the report. Very important: no jargon or technical terms that they might not understand. Plain English. Just break it down. Again, I put hyperlinks in again because that'll bring you to a paragraph or 2 or even a sentence to elaborate a little more on that. And that's all part of my report writing software. The blue hyperlinks, they're designed where they'll take you to another section outside of the report to gather more information if the client chooses to. Easy to navigate throughout. We talked about the systems. We're basically inspecting roughly 10 systems. On report writing, you want the client to be able to navigate through that report relatively quick and easy. So if you're starting out with roofing as your first system and interior as your last, you don't want them to have to scroll through all those pages. So on the top, there's tabs that you can click on the tab and it'll take you to that system immediately, and then you'll just navigate through that system. So that's what that means. What to include and exclude from a report: photographs. We're all doing, it seems like AJ said 100%, everybody's doing computer generated reports. I'm sure everybody's got pictures in there. It's
We do have
always,
one person that does still do hard copy.
okay, so that's the triplicate, carbon copy, and then just tear it off, give one to the client. And then you have one, and then you got a spare one that if it has to go to an attorney or something like that. So yeah, like I said before, there are some people that still do it, and you know, whatever works. Again, that's doing it that way is still following the SOP. The SOP does not state that you have to do a computer generated report. So again, the SOP, again, we're going back to it, understand it, read it, and then it's going to help you develop your report as you navigate through. Report writing tips. We spoke about that. You know, good writing in a concise, do not add unnecessary details and create confusion. Um, I always like when we're on an inspection, myself and Christopher, I like to show the clients everything. And when they read the report, I want that to be the second time they see that whatever it is, a deficiency, a recommendation, an understanding of it. So, you know, we take our time to make sure that the client sees the information in real time. We also do a lot of inspections for clients that are not able to attend the inspection. So what we'll do is they'll be available via FaceTime if there's something that we really want to show them, in, you know, so they can see it again. Even though it's FaceTime, they'll be able to see it while we're there and generate questions, as opposed to seeing it for the first time in the report. We do a lot of inspections for folks that are out of the state, out of the country too. We do a lot of inspections where clients are, you know, live in Canada, they're buying property in the United States, even overseas. We come across that a lot. So that's, you know, again, that's important to understand, you know, how you go about your inspection. For me personally, as well as for my son Christopher, it's important for us, for the client to see, you know, in real time what we're talking about, and reporting it in the report. So when they see it in the report, they understand it a little more readily from seeing it, you know, on site. Um, pretty self-explanatory about being specific, um, for providing enough necessary detail to support your actions and your conclusions. Um, Write naturally, again, going back to no jargon, just keep it simple. What we as inspectors take for granted, you know, for certain terminology that we talk about, um, the average, you know, home buyer might not. So, you know, plain English helps a lot. Um, Pretty straightforward. Organize your thoughts. Keep topics about the same subject together. Don't bounce around. Make it clear, especially on actions to be taken. Make it understood that, you know, if there's an electrical concern, that, you know, you want them to, you know, have a licensed and insured electrician, you know, handle that kind of stuff. Again, use words and terms your reader can understand, interpret, and visualize as you go along. Um, Writing reports, you know, it's all preference. It's up to you. What makes the most sense when you're writing a report? You know, I like to write my report. I get my reports done in a much quicker time when there's nothing going on. If I'm writing my report and I'm watching a hockey game or a baseball game, it literally takes twice as long, because you tend to drift and go through that. So it's all preference. You know, we're talking about report writing. I'm just sharing my thoughts on how you do it. Um, Proofread the report before sending to client. We talked about that earlier. It's very important to make sure that your words are spelled properly, your thoughts, read it through, digest it, understand it, proofread it. Again, going back to the two inspection person, Christopher double checks it. I double check it. We're bouncing things off of each other. Um, go off a little bit on a tangent. To me, the two inspection team, when we're out there, it's kind of like another insurance policy where we're kind of covering each other's information and data. There's a lot of times Christopher will pick up a mistake I made that I looked at 10 times and I didn't pick it up, and he'll bring it to my attention, and vice versa. That's important, and it also shows your professionalism when you're sending out that report. It's the dessert after a meal, to use an analogy, that you want your client to walk away with that report and know that it's a nice, concise, professional report. And don't forget, it's a marketing tool. When your report goes out, a lot of people are going to see it. It's shared, not through us, but through your client. They're going to send it to their uncle or somebody, or friend, or somebody that could be an electrician, or plumber, or roofer. So we get a lot of jobs because people look at the reports and they'll like it. And it helps show you as an inspector your professionalism and your attention to detail from the report. That person's not on the inspection with you to see what a great job you do, but if they read your report, they can kind of get an understanding. Many years ago, I had gotten a phone call from an attorney, and usually when you get a phone call from an attorney, it's usually never a good thing. So the person called me up and asked, is this Rob Bryne higher elevation home? Yes, it is. Hi, this is, and mentioned his name as the attorney. And he must have heard me gasp. And he goes, no. He goes, this is not a bad phone call. Actually, I'm calling to compliment you because I got your report, and I got to tell you, it's one of the nicest reports I've seen in a long time. And he's been an attorney for quite a while. And to this day, he recommends us all the time. So your report lives and has longevity when it's out there. So really pay attention to the report, organize it, spell check it, and you will definitely get business from a good report. Just where you might lose business from not having a good detailed report. So that's important, and you avoid miscommunication with your client, because when we're on the inspection, we all know the human brain, we comprehend 10% of what we're showed, so they can't remember everything, and this just communicates with them in detail when they're reading your report.
All right, Rob, we got a couple questions. Mark wants to know if you use AI.
Do I use AI? No, I write everything out. And again, we've been doing this a long time. So going back to the soft writing report, as you write your reports, you can save all of that stuff as part of your template. Also, it'll populate for certain things that you repeat, and you can just kind of put it in there. But no, I don't use AI because I don't trust it. I mean, you can use it to give you a thought process, but put it in your own words. A lot of times you read these AI generated paragraph, and you can kind of tell they're AI generated. I like to put it in my own thoughts. I do get ideas from AI, certain things that, and a lot of folks that when I teach the class and we're in class, they do go and they'll copy and paste something, they'll read it and they'll make that part of the. If you remember in the beginning, I used the word library. That's part of your report writing and your software as well as your mobile app. You'll have a library that you can. But yeah, if you're not sure how to put something in contents, then yeah, use AI. But when you do it so long, it's kind of just second nature.
Chris asks,
Did you have another question?
we have a couple more. Chris asks, do you
Yep.
use a phone or tablet when you're doing your inspections, and why do you use them?
Great question. And this is going to lead me to a really good topic of conversation. And you always like to have an icebreaker when you're doing the actual physical inspection. We use our phones because for me personally, it's easier to handle, to use. And it's funny when we're on site and, people have what they call their driveway speech or whatever, you kind of prepping your clients, and usually the realtors listening is people listening. And I joke around and I say, you're going to see us, on our phones, trust me, Christopher's not texting his girlfriend. I'm not texting my wife. We're actually putting data in it. And you'd be surprised that sometimes people, if you have your phone, they think you might be texting. So again, that's a great question. Obviously, if you're on a tablet, then people know it's kind of work related, but we do use our phones for the software, because I find that if I'm going into a crawl space, I can take my phone and just stick it in my pocket versus a tablet that is hard to navigate. We walk roofs when we do inspections, so it's easier to put the phone in your back pocket as opposed to holding a tablet. But if you guys watch, Jim Crum do some of his videos, he has a tablet. He, swings around his shoulder like a sling, and he's up and out, doing it on his tablet, which it's all preference. So to answer the question, we use it on we use our phones.
And while you're using that, what kind of software are you using, Rob?
We use Horizon report writing software. And there's a ton of them out there. I would highly recommend getting trial samples of report writing software from different companies and see what works best for you as the individual. Any other questions, AJ?
Not so far. Nope. I think that's it for right now.
Excellent. All right. How we doing on time? We're good?
Good. You got about 8 minutes.
8 minutes. All right. I think we're pretty close. We're pretty good. Also, your report, it's a maintenance plan for your clients. And at the end of our report, I have a reference library that the clients can go through and use it for maintenance. Also, we talked about the blue hyperlinks. There's blue hyperlinks embedded in my report where you can click on it and it'll give you a maintenance program. It'll give you a lot of information that will help you take care of your house. A lot of times we go to a house and the outside hose spigot bib is not, frost free. So you have to make sure that you talk to your client and say, again, we're talking Northeast. Obviously, if you're down in Florida or Texas or certain areas, you don't have to shut it off because you guys don't get freezing weather. But it's a maintenance plan for folks, cleaning gutters, that type of thing. So believe it or not, that report comes out, a couple of times a year as well. So it's important to document all of that stuff for them. Allows them to plan for long-term upkeep of the property. So those type of things are important.
Rob, do you
The
send out copies of your report or samples?
I'm sorry.
Do you send out copies of your reports or samples?
If people want, you can't share that information. I do block it out. Like there's a sample report on my website. I blocked it all out and I got permission from that client. I told him that I was going to put, that sample. And there's no problem. The address came off, the name came off. So if you go to the website, you'll see a sample report on there. And if anybody has a website, highly recommend putting a sample report on the website so folks can see, your product. You want to showcase yourself to share that with them.
HUD asks,
Um,
HUD says he's located in Brooklyn, New York, and needs to complete CE to renew his license. What part of New York are you located, Rob?
we're in Long Island, and what was the person's name?
HUD Malik.
Okay, Yeah, no, that's great. Just AJ, let them know to reach out to me personally. I can connect them with the school where I teach. New York State approved. I'll give him Bill's number. He could reach out to Bill and set up, continuing ed. Now, I don't know about the other states, but in New York, we need uh 24 hours of CE credits every 2 years. And I know different states, some states aren't, you don't even need a license, but that's make sure that person knows to get his continuing ed credits. That's really important in New York State.
He has your email.
Excellent, excellent. Um, again, the inspection and the report allows for our clients to make an informed decision, because I know it's cliche, you hear it all the time. It's the biggest investment that they're making probably in their lifetime. So you want them to be informed. Again, first time home buyers, they're deer in the headlights. They're overwhelmed with what's going on the inspection. So when they get the report, it's easy for them to digest and understand it. And I always tell my clients, feel free to reach out to me after the inspection if you have any questions regarding the report. And usually they'll text me, or they'll set up a time. I'll jump on a phone call with them. We're always driving between inspections, so I always thank them and tell them, say, oh, thanks for keeping me company as we're driving between inspections. And again, icebreakers, and that's how you build your client relationships and stuff like that. So it's important. Um, to recap, and we're spot on, AJ. I can't believe this. This is like, I think this is like the last slide. This is great. Um, so you could say Jimmy did a great job, right, AJ?
Great job.
Yeah, right. I mean, when it comes to this, I'm out. It's not my wheelhouse. So I have a friend of mine that put this PowerPoint presentation together off of my handwritten notes. But again, to recap, we talked about introduction to the standards of practice. Get familiar with the SOPs. InterNACHI has it, on the website. I mentioned it a few times. Great source of reference. We talked about what clients want in a report, what do inspectors want in report writing software. I know we navigated through that a little bit. You have to see what works best for you, and really drill down to if you're going to do a mobile app, to really understand then how to do it. We talked about why we write a report. It's important for your clients. Limitations. I know a lot of people like to use that CYA word. I don't like using it. I just tell people, do your job. Listen, a limitation is a limitation. You have to state it, but just do your job. A lot of people are like, oh, CYA, and everybody knows what that stands for. Just do your job. Don't hide behind limitations and, oh, I didn't feel like moving, a couple of empty boxes to get to the electrical panel, or whatever. I know some areas you don't open up the electrical panel, but just make a conscious effort. Let your clients see you, doing your job, and you'll be surprised. People see you, going out of your way, getting into that crawl space, doing things, and they respect you for doing that, as opposed to the inspector that just kind of just running around and trying to get done as fast as possible. And I'm I'm not we're not from that. We talked about how to write a report, the legal considerations, um, what the legal considerations are. We went over that. We talked about who is the client, layout and content, report organization. That's important. What to include, what to exclude, and report writing tips. Pretty straightforward. Easy topic. Anybody that's in the webinar tonight, is anybody going to be down in Orlando for the convention? And if you are, I would love to personally meet you. Come up to me. I believe I'm doing Saturday afternoon. if you're on the webinar and you're down in Orlando, please come up and say hi and introduce yourself. Love to put a face with hopefully some of the questions and chats that we spoke about. But there we go. Feedback. That's my information. That's my personal cell phone. If anybody wants to shoot me a text to have a question, that's my personal email. Pretty straightforward. And back to us. That's my son Christopher on the left. He's out in the field with us. Joseph's the back of the house guy. He takes care of all the finances, all the bills, make sure everything's paid. And then we have, if you go to my website, you'll see one of the other gentlemen that work with us. And we have 3 other inspectors that are camera shy. They don't want to be on the website. But AJ, I think that would be a good webinar talking about, 2-person inspection team and kind of get feedback, see how people would want to have a conversation about that. I did a couple of podcasts on that were fun. Different type of topics that come up during it and safety and all kinds of stuff. So maybe that's something you and I could talk about. I would love to possibly do that. Again, that's my information. We also have we do commercial inspections as well. That's our commercial company, East Coast Commercial Inspections, Higher Elevation. That's up. And that's the last slide, believe it or not, AJ. I mean, it couldn't have been timed and planned better than this.